right, good afternoon everyone, or good morning if you're watching in another time zone, and welcome to today's webinar session. Today's webinar session is presented by Plan Tracker and Hireup, and we've got some lovely collaborators here with us today. So I'd like to throw just across for some brief introductions while we wait for everyone to connect with us, to Louise from Plan Tracker and Poppy from Hireup. So Poppy, we might actually start with you today. Do you just want to introduce yourself to everyone?
Yeah, well, hi, and thanks for having me today, Plan Tracker guys. My name's Poppy. My role's Head of Community at Hireup. Bit of a weird title for someone that I guess looks after a bunch of different things, mainly getting out and engaging with our community. So a lot of the community engagement, government and industry activities.
Fantastic. All right, and Louise, are you happy to introduce yourself for a moment?
Absolutely. So thank you everyone for joining us today. I'm Louise and I am from Plan Tracker, and we offer plan management services, and we also have a self-management app that is available for self-managed participants. So my role is I manage the customer care team, and I may have spoken with a number of you. We deal a lot with our participants and their nominees and support coordinators and providers.
Fantastic. All right. And for anyone who doesn't know me already, my name's Mel. I work with Louise at Plan Tracker as part of the engagement team. You may have seen me about online. We have some great, fantastic Facebook groups, as well as a lot of engagement events such as these webinars. We're very happy to have you all here. I think we'll just give everyone one more minute to kind of jump in with us, but I'll just run you through what we're going to be talking about today briefly. So today's webinar topic obviously is the shift. So we're rethinking supports for COVID-19. And that's why we've partnered up with Hireup today, just to look at some creative and innovative ways that you can be thinking about engaging supports, continuing support, or finding new supports during these times. And also thinking about planning ahead for the future. So it's important not just to be responsive and reactive to right now, but also to be planning ahead. So we've got some great questions that have come through in advance, and you're more than welcome for anyone. Just a little bit of housekeeping here. If you do have questions, we have lovely Justine who'll be moderating in our chat box today. So there's a chat function and a Q&A function that you'll find at the bottom of your screen. You can pop your questions in either of those for us. Some of them we'll be answering on air at the end during our Q&A session. That'll be live with the team here today. And for some of them, if they are super specific, we may actually park them and come back to you personally. We will, rest assured, follow up with everyone who has a question here today, whether we answer it live on air or we reach out to you personally after the webinar. We really appreciate everyone who is attending live and those who are watching the replay. So just to save this question coming up a few times, we will be recording the session today, and the webinar replay will be made available within the next 24 hours with captioning as well. And we'll also be linking all of the resources on the webinar replay page. So that should cover a few of those questions that we tend to get started with. What I might do for you ladies, if we're ready, I'm just going to pop the slides up on everyone's screen. So just let me grab that. Alrighty. Fantastic. All right. Can I just get a nod if you can both see those up on your screen now? Fantastic, nodding away. All right, everyone, I think we're going to jump in. If you are joining us a little bit later, you can always grab the replay to catch up on the start section here. So what we're going to jump into first in today's webinar is talking about building your team and really who those essential team members are. So Poppy, I thought we might start with you actually today, being from Hireup and being a great platform for connecting with support workers. What kind of advice would you give for participants or support coordinators potentially as well, helping to connect individuals and people with disability to find the right support workers during the current time and future planning?
Yeah, great question, Mel. It's probably important just to give a quick little summary as to what Hireup is. I know you gave a nice little spiel there. So Hireup is, as you've said, Mel, an online platform that gives people with a disability the power to find, hire and manage disability support workers that fit their needs and share their interests. And I think that's a really critical piece, the fitting the needs and sharing an interest, a really critical part of what we're trying to achieve at the moment, and ultimately what we're hearing our community is looking for right now. So the way that we're suggesting people to go about finding the right support during COVID-19, like you've put there, is firstly having a think about who do you already know. Maybe there's support workers that you've connected with on Hireup, outside of Hireup. and think about whether those existing relationships are good ones to either reconnect with or ramp up a little bit. Are there other people in your broader community? Is there someone that you've connected with at Surf Lifesaving Club or at the sports club or at church that you think, actually, maybe they'll be a really great person that might be able to keep me really connected to my interests, my pursuits, or maybe support me to do groceries or whatever it might be. So it's firstly thinking about, who do I already know and how can I tap into that? And then obviously some of the just practical things that you can do if you're using the Hireup platform is using our online jobs board. So our online jobs board is really straightforward. Once you're an approved user of Hireup, you can post a specific job. So that could be something that's one-off or reoccurring. Give it a nice jazzy heading as to what you're looking for. Might be a personal care shift, or it might be groceries or getting someone to run some errands for you. Put in the time and date. That job then goes out to all the workers in a 20-kilometre radius and they'll flag their interest. So they're two of the really practical things. Obviously, you can always just scroll through the wonderful support workers that are on the platform and reach out to them. But yeah, probably the three things.
Fantastic. And I love that fact that it's kind of within a close radius, so you can find someone who's really in your community and in your area. So I think that's really, really great. And as you mentioned there, it's also, I feel personally, and I know for a lot of participants that we support as a plan manager at Plan Tracker, that finding people that you connect with on that personal level is really paramount to having that successful relationship with your support worker and building that team. So I think that's really important. Now, Louise, I wanted to kind of engage you on this next one. I know we get the question a lot, and I know that this was updated. Everyone wants the date. It's the 25th of March. Support coordination. I believe you have some good news for us that you don't have to have that support coordination budget to access that anymore.
Yeah, that's right. So on the 25th of March, the NDIS created a new line item for support coordination within a participant's core budget. So that means if they haven't got that specific support coordination budget when they had their initial plan review, they can now access assistance of a support coordinator through their core budget, which is fantastic.
Fantastic. That's really great to hear. And I know that opens up a lot of flexibility, because sometimes for individuals, we might find it a little bit hard to be connecting, and we might just need that extra layer of support for someone who can help connect us with services, whether that's support workers or therapy providers and so on and so forth. Having that additional, it is always good to have a conversation. So I always advocate for communication, as we all do here at Plan Tracker. And I'm sure, Poppy, your team at Hireup will be much the same. Communication is always key. So for those seeking support coordination under their core funding, if you didn't previously have a support coordinator, always reach out and have a conversation with someone that you're considering. Some of them do offer minimum hours or those sorts of things, but it is always by negotiation. So they do a lot of work behind the scenes. So it might not just be an hour face-to-face meeting that they're doing. They might do 3 or 4 hours of prep before and after, and there are mandatory reporting requirements. So they still do have to do a little bit of that work behind the scenes, but they are a valuable resource for you as well. Something else I just wanted to touch on for everyone in terms of building your team is, if you're finding that you're getting stuck out with a lack of flexibility, and we've found this more often, and Louise, I'm sure you'd vouch for this as well with the amount of calls we've had coming into Plan Tracker recently, those with agency managed plans who are finding it hard to engage with their regular providers, so they might have had a larger disability org providing support workers, and if they're agency managed, they have to be a registered provider. So they're seeking that flexibility. Louise, is that something that you're seeing in terms of people wanting to switch over during this time?
Absolutely. We're definitely seeing an increased number of calls of people just asking what the process is. So they may be agency managed and wanting to come across to either plan managed or self-managed. So they just have been giving us a call and asking, for a little bit of guidance of what we do. So we just suggest that they speak to the NDIS or their local area coordinator about asking for that plan management or self-management if they want to go in that direction.
Fantastic. And just for everyone's clarity, having that conversation with your local area coordinator, if you're past the first 12 weeks, I think it is, of your plan start date, it does trigger a plan review to change the funding style. If you're within that 12-week period, it's an administrative change, so it's what we call a light touch review. So it's something where they can switch it over without reviewing the whole plan during that time. So that's nice and easy. All right, what I'd love to have a chat with you guys about next, and I'll just flick this slide over, is access to supports and services and our support workers during this time. And also we're going to touch on devices, because I know I get this question daily, and Louise, she'll back me up, and I'm sure Poppy's had a few of them.
Yeah.
All right, so something I think is really important for us now when we're rethinking how we're engaging with our support workers and with our support team is that you can be apart together. So just because you might not be able to be within the 1.5 to 2 meters distance, depending on your state location, or that you can't be in the same room if it's for health reasons or whatever it might be, you still can have those personal connections virtually. So as we're doing here today, we're connecting from all around Australia with our community and with each other and fellow providers and with participants, families, support coordinators, whoever you might be. We love connecting with you in whatever format suits you. So there's lots of different platforms that you can use for this. But something I'd love to have a chat with you about, Poppy and Louise, is what sort of technology questions are you getting at the moment, apart from the can I buy an iPad or tablet, which we'll cover in a moment?
Well, yeah, I'll leave the what can I buy from a technology standpoint to you, Louise. But I guess the technology questions ultimately that we're getting asked is, if my support is being done in a non-face-to-face way, what technology should I use? What's safe to use? You know, what can be claimed in terms of, you know, requesting my support workers to use that kind of technology. I mean, what we're really encouraging people to do, obviously those essential face-to-face supports need to continue and should continue, and we're there to make sure that they do. But those things that can be done a little bit more creatively and maybe in a remote way, maybe it's sort of a bit of school tutoring, music practice, maybe it's a dance class, who knows. If some things can be done in a virtual or sort of remote way, then why not use a platform like Zoom, like Google Hangouts, some of those platforms which you can access both on your, you know, iPhone, tablet, or on your PC or computer. So we've provided people, we've got a bit of a blog which we can share later around some of the great tips and tricks and some of the different tools you can use. I mean, we're hearing from some people that are using the party app, which is hilarious, and sending us really great screenshots when they're just wanting to hang out with their team and, you know, catch up. So wonderful apps and technology that's out there now that should really keep people connected and allow a lot of support to continue. That's probably sort of what the majority of what people are asking for at the moment from our front.
Fantastic. I love the fact that people are jumping on that party app. I think we've seen some great fun examples. Awesome. Yeah, the house party.
Yeah.
Absolutely loving it. Louise, did you have anything to add to that?
No, I'm happy to talk about the accessing devices if you'd like to look at that.
Look, I think we might as well go there because that question comes up so often, so go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's certainly one of the topic of the moment for us at Plan Tracker is, can I purchase a device with my plan, and how do I go about purchasing a device?
Apologies.
That's okay. It's all right. So the NDIS put through some changes at the end of March. What month are we in? May. And what they're saying is that you can purchase a device if it's you know, within a reasonable limit. So the limit for a device is $750, and they did just release a new line item to allow you to take it from your capacity building budget if you do not have consumables within your core budget. So they do request that you have written advice, and Plan Tracker, I'm sure we can pop up, we've got a link to our great written advice form that you can provide to your therapist or provider to submit with your invoice. So it's $750 for a device. So what they're looking for is there something that you already have? These are the questions that they want you to go through. Is there something that you already have that you could use or borrow from someone else? If not, they want you to just look at buying the basic model that you need to be able to access your services. So as I said, they've put a limit of $750 on that. If a participant wanted to buy something additional, they have the opportunity to pay the additional amount and claim that $750 from either their core budget, or if they do not have that core budget, from their capacity budget.
Fantastic. And just to clarify for everyone, the date of effect of this was the 27th of April. So this came into effect at the end of April, that these changes came across. And I think that was about everything. Thank you, Louise. I think that really covers it. There is an article.
There, Mel. Sorry, I might just add in there, an extra bit. The other question in regards to this is it okay for me to be claiming these remote supports? I think, people have been really traditionally in the mindset that the service needs to be delivered in a face-to-face way for it to be, a genuine claim and able to claim against someone's plan. And I guess the advice that the NDIS has put out, and what we're absolutely encouraging, is during this time, take your plan and think about it flexibly and creatively. And if your supports are being delivered, whether that's face-to-face, remotely, or in some other, appropriately, creative way, then absolutely it's fine to be claimed. And so, if an hour of service is delivered with you in your home and your support worker in their home, and you're claiming that through the Hireup platform, then absolutely that's fine.
Yeah, and look, I couldn't agree with you more. We're definitely all for the flexibility at Plan Tracker as well. So the NDIS, as you quite finely said, they definitely have given that direction, that it doesn't matter if it is at the moment a kind of tele support, if you like, or whether it is face-to-face in person. Obviously, where possible, depending on the disability and the requirements, if it can be socially distanced, then do. If it has to be within that social distancing requirement, that having PPE available where possible. Obviously, we can't give legal advice. We are not lawyers, but the NDIS definitely has directed where possible to make that available for your support team. So that's all very, very helpful. And I don't know why my slide keeps changing. So we're just going to attempt to
I might just add, Mel. Yeah, I might just add that so they are going to be reviewing all of this again in June. So at the moment it's set at September, I think it is. Pretty sure it's September, but they're going to be reviewing that in June. That's the latest advice anyway from the NDIS.
Fantastic. All right. Now, in terms of supports, Poppy, I know you touched on this in terms of whether you can have a support face-to-face or virtually online. What sorts of supports are you seeing your support workers kind of doing virtually at the moment?
So yeah, like I touched on, I mean, it's all things from the weird and wonderful, house parties with your support team, right through to maybe some of the a little more practical things that people are getting done. I was having a wonderful chat with a woman in Newcastle who uses Hireup, who was sharing her story about support workers who she used to have come into the home to do some domestic activities, so like support with cleaning, laundry, ironing, and cooking. And at the moment, she's taken a bit of a safe approach to that, and her support worker is actually doing some of that cleaning, meal preparation at her home and then dropping it off for her. Now, obviously, she's not having that social connection with the worker, but the work that she really critically needs to get done is being done in a safe and sort of creative way. So there's some of, on that spectrum of house party catch-ups through to practical, but then right in the middle as well, we've got wonderful stories of people, whether it's playing video games together or learning how to play those games together. We've got a wonderful story of Dom and Zach, who have a great relationship and a great passion for the St. George Dragons. They do a bit of mix of maybe a little touch of video games, but also then watching some of the repeats of the St. George games. Their original plan was to watch St. George games from their own home and just sort of zoom into one another and chat about the game and have a bit of banter. But obviously there's no games at the moment. So they're watching repeats and loving the actual, the classic games. So that's some of what's happening there. Dom's also doing some of the groceries for Zach and his family. And then at times coming in and doing a bit of cooking skills and those kind of classes, but just trying to keep that to an absolute minimum. Whilst there's not a real need for it, they're just trying to sort of pick out what are the critical things that, Dom needs to be in the house for and what doesn't he. So yeah, lots of wonderful creative ideas there.
I absolutely love that. And look, I'll say even in my household, definitely the online gaming situation, the amount of chatter that goes on between people it doesn't even matter if you're in this country, like they play all around the world. So definitely that's a fun
crazy.
one with support workers. I love that that is implemented, and we'll definitely share that story that you mentioned there, Poppy. I know I watched that video on the Hireup website and it was fantastic. I absolutely loved it. So we'll make sure everyone gets a copy of that to have a watch. Check it out if you can, and obviously let Hireup or us know if you've got any questions about it. We'd love to hear from you. What I'd love to talk about with you guys next, my slides cooperate with me this time. No, there we go. All right, so creative community ideas, and I think this is why majority of people are joining us here today. In terms of kind of shifting what our supports are looking like now, and as we mentioned earlier, also planning ahead for that future component when restrictions hopefully do ease and we are getting back out and about in the community. In terms of staying connected, do you think it's okay, Poppy, for a support worker potentially to be helping, say I'm a participant, can a support worker be helping me to kind of explore my options in terms of technology and what platforms I want to use and those sorts of things?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Hireup attracts a pretty tech-savvy world. So I'm sure if you're reaching out and connecting with support workers, they've probably got great ideas about the technology that they're using. Maybe they're using it for uni or TAFE or other aspects of their life, and connecting with their family. So absolutely get support workers to help you find and navigate which technology and which platforms are going to work best for you to be able to achieve the things you're wanting to achieve. And maybe that's staying connected with your family or with your church, or maybe it's doing virtual dance classes, whatever that might be, finding some of those classes or activities online so that you're keeping fit and active and, having a bit of fun. That's a really great activity to be doing with a support worker, because like you said, restrictions will start to ease, but there's still going to need to be, a really high level of precaution, and obviously social distancing is still going to need to take place. So it's not like we're going back to the swimming pool and our dance classes and gyms next week. It's probably still going to be a little while for that. So really encouraging people to have a think about what are some of the, if it's a health and wellbeing goal that I've got, what are some of the health and wellbeing activities that I can do at home? Meditation class, or some at home fitness. There's all of the apps that are out at the moment. I'm joining most of them to try and stay fit and active, as we then build our way back into a little bit of a let's say a new normal over the coming months. So yeah, things will look different. So I think it's not just sort of working towards getting back to normal, it's actually thinking what's that transition process whilst we're hopefully getting back to a bit of a normal, in the next maybe 3 to 6 months.
Lovely. And look, I absolutely love the fact that it's going to look like, in my opinion, a very new version of normal. A lot of us, maybe for the first time, or reacquainting ourselves with technology and what we can do online. And really looking at, as we said, not just being reactive to what you need right now, that is extremely important, but also looking ahead and having things to look forward to in terms of when those restrictions ease. I think it's great suggestions there, Poppy, in terms of kind of navigating those new socializing ways in having online dance classes or doing meditation in groups and those sorts of things. Have you had any support workers on the Hireup platform, or that you know of, that are helping to connect people socially in terms of having like a virtual cuppa with a couple of friends and those sorts of things?
Yeah, definitely. And that's where I think some of the, let's say virtual cuppa or virtual sort of Friday afternoon appropriate drinks, through dance party or through house party, sorry. Maybe it turns into a dance party.
Maybe it is a dance party, you never know.
I think it is at times. So yeah, there are lots of people who are saying, actually, what's really important to me with my support worker relationships is that check-in and that connection. And so whilst I might not need that physical support right now, actually the social connection is really, really important to me. So how do I just make sure that's maintained? So people are putting in, sometimes it's a couple of times a day for sort of, 15 minutes or whatever it might be. If a support worker is really comfortable to do that, check in, have a cuppa, how's your day going? What's on for today? It's those routines and things that we might have done before and we want to continue doing, but just look a little bit different, are really important to still sort of build into your day-to-day, but just obviously slightly different. And I think the other thing to just also, which I probably haven't touched on, is just safety precautions. I know you mentioned PPE, and that's obviously a huge thing to be thinking about, just broadly infection control, as we're getting back to maybe rebuilding in some of our support workers into our life, maybe going less from the online, more to the face-to-face. And so we've built a bunch of information sheets around, start of the shift, during the shift, after the shift, gloves and all of that sort of stuff, just to give people a bit of a sense as to what's an appropriate level of sort of PPE that I should be applying to these different kind of supports that I have coming in and out of my life. So that's just another thing to be thinking about over the next coming months as we ramp back up our supports.
Yeah, definitely. And just to make a note, and I think Justine might pop this in the chat box for everyone, if you're having trouble trying to access, so PPE, just for clarity, is personal protective equipment.
Thank you.
If anyone is having any issues trying to access that, the NDIS does have a stockpile available. I'll make sure that link is on the replay page for everyone as well. So that is if you are struggling to find it through local suppliers and those sorts of things, there is some criteria to meet. But you definitely can apply to access the NDIS stockpile for your workers and self-isolate.
We've also secured, I wouldn't say a huge stockpile, but in emergency circumstances, just reach out where we've got some stuff on hand.
Fantastic. Excellent. That is super valuable to hear, Poppy. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, always good to know, because I know a lot in the community, the first thing we all couldn't get access to was PPE equipment. Yeah. So it went thick and fast, and it's not coming back very, very quickly, but you can still get it in some places. And I know some are actually compounding, some pharmacies are compounding, and some manufacturers are switching to actually make this equipment for us. So lots of options there, but always reach out and have a chat. You can have a chat with Poppy and the team at Hireup, or you can reach out to Plan Track and we can give you some potential resources based on your area. So reach out and have a chat with us. The next thing I wanted to talk about is really continuity of support. So I know for a lot of us in the community, when COVID-19 kind of ramped up and all these really massive restrictions came in, and even when they were just getting started, a lot of us had a tendency to just go, halt, we're not going to do anything and we're going to stop supports. And it's a little bit of a hindrance. Yes, there are certain supports that you potentially can't be doing during this time for social distancing requirements and other restrictions. They might be closed, for instance. But in terms of continuing, I wanted to touch on a story that Sarah Harvey in our community reached out to me with. In terms of continuing a support that had already started. So for anonymity, we're just going to call it a project that we had underway for this participant. So this individual had a project underway that they were doing with their support worker in their home. And then when the social restrictions came in, they weren't able to continue with this kind of organisational project in their home. So what they did was, instead of ceasing it and just going, stop, going to put a pin in it, not going to keep going, they looked at ways to continue it. So they've looked at kind of skipping a few steps forward to buying some organisational equipment that they're going to use for this project and those sorts of things. And Louise or Poppy, if either of you have anything to add there, I'd love to hear from you in terms of supports that you've seen kind of innovated or reshaped during this time by participants or by support workers, and what they're kind of looking like.
Oh, put me on the spot there. Louise, have you got some, plenty of stories I can pull out, but...
Feel free to pull one out, Poppy.
I think some of the employment-related challenges that certain individuals have had, where they haven't necessarily been able to be going back into work and their work hasn't been able to necessarily be shifted online. Thinking about what have been some of my career development related goals. So whilst I might not be able to be doing the practical learning that I was getting in my day-to-day sort of job, actually what are the things that I was progressing or hoping to achieve? And therefore, are there some courses that I can take during this time to really upskill? Often people put, courses and learning and development kind of on the back burner because they're a little bit too busy. Now's a really incredible time to upskill. Some of the TAFEs have wonderful short courses. Lots of people are doing sort of Cert 3 in digital marketing or whatever it might be, or even like a much shorter sort of, 20-hour course to upskill during this period, and doing that with a support worker that might have some of those skills already. So that's where we've been seeing some people shift, right? I can't go to work at the moment and to get that practical hands-on experience, but actually what I can do is get experience and sort of continue to upskill that's really aligned with my goals. So that's sort of one of the one of the ones that sort of comes to mind. You got another one there, Louise?
I was going to say one of the, some of the things that we have been finding is people asking a lot about online courses actually. And so there's other supports that they're not using at the moment. So that is definitely something that's been on an increase of, can I access my funding in a different way, especially their social community participation funding. So they're not going out and doing those things. So they're looking at, alternatives, which has been wonderful. And as you mentioned about the courses, we've had a lot of people wanting to do just short-term courses that maybe they just hadn't really had the opportunity or time to do, but is really helping them. So it's been definitely one of the good topics that's come out of this, is that they've been able to help train or increase their knowledge or capacity in different things that they've wanted to look at in the past, but just haven't really had the opportunity to do. So sometimes when you're stuck and you can't go anywhere, it forces you to think outside your square. So you start looking at doing different things.
And people who have gym programs as well, I think sometimes it's a bit, when the gym's closed, it's like, great, I won't be able to do anything. But actually there's a huge amount that you can do at home. So really encouraging people to reach out to their physios and their OTs, see if they can pull together a really basic home program that maybe you could do with a support worker, maybe you can do on your own or with a family member. Getting some resistance bands. I've heard people doing bicep curls with baked bean tins, all sorts of weird and wonderful things. There's lots of things you can use at home to keep fit. I think it's just reaching out to the therapists and the people that know you and sort of saying, hey, have you got any great ideas? Because these goals are still really, really important to me. They just need to look a little bit different right now. Yep,
absolutely. And that was, the equipment is similar with the devices. The NDIS came out and said, right, well, there's, a $1,500 maximum that you can use on equipment. And we've definitely seen a huge increase on exercise equipment that people are doing because they can't go out to their physio or their therapy or their pool. And they're working with their support team to work out ways that they can still get that exercise done at home and build their strength that way.
Fantastic. And just for clarity here, sorry, there is a bug flying around my face. That is the joys of working from home. So just for clarity on that, with the AT budget, that is the low risk, low cost, Louise, that you're mentioning there?
That's right, absolutely.
Fantastic. All right. And I know we've popped an article up in the chat box already with some outlines of those changes that we're going through. There's a few questions about budgets going on. That is all covered in that article for you. Poppy, I absolutely loved that. And thank you, Louise, for even expanding on that as well. The online course kind of platform and having the time, which I know a lot of us are generally time poor, but having this time now is really a great opportunity. And I love the fact that you can creatively think about having a support worker support you to do an online course, whether they have some experience and knowledge, if it's helping you to connect to the online platform, or if it was, say, digital marketing or whatever it might be, that they have some experience in that and they can kind of help you if you get stuck at a part of the course and those sorts of things. I absolutely love that. I think it's a really great way to continue with the connection of those relationships, as well as kind of growing towards those goals that we talk about, that we always come back to as well. So the other thing that we're seeing a lot in the community, and Poppy, I know you've already touched on this, so thank you for that, is assistance with everyday tasks. So things like, if I can't go out and leave my home to go and get my groceries, can my support worker pick them up? And things like that. Louise, I'm sure you've seen some coming through. I'm sure we do get those questions a lot. I know I've definitely had a few. Other things that I was thinking about is, can I have a support worker go and pick up my prescription from the pharmacy? Is that something I can do?
Absolutely. I mean, we hope that pharmacists are being flexible during this time, but there's been a couple of times where we've gotten on the phone, a support worker's been somewhere and sort of said, look, I'm not able to pick this up for someone, can you help me out? Or just explain who I am and that I do work for a legitimate organization. And that was happening in the early days. And so actually what we did was we created a digital ID badge for support workers, because that was one of the fears. What if I am out running errands for someone and the police or whoever stops me doesn't have doesn't think that I've got a genuine excuse. So that digital ID badge has been really reassuring for people, but also has been used a number of times when police or whoever it's been, local councillors, checking up on why someone's out in the community, what they're doing, and who they're working for. But doing those errands on behalf of someone is a really, really great way to use a support worker, a great task. So whether it's shopping, whether it's prescriptions, whatever it might be, maybe it's sort of making sure that the outside of the house is sort of not growing too wild, or other tasks. Yeah, really great ways to engage a support worker.
That's definitely feedback we've been getting, Poppy, as well. Sorry, is that people are using their support workers in different ways that they hadn't done before. For necessity, it just prompted me then when you talked about outside the home, having someone to come, and you might not be able to get out to your letterbox. Going and checking your postbox or your letterbox, and doing that and helping you in that way. So we've definitely seen an increase in creative ways people have been working with their support workers.
Yeah, and I know we've definitely touched on this in a session before, but I just thought it might be good to refresh everyone that you can also have a support worker assist you to connect with your local neighbourhood. So in the event that they fall ill, we do not wish that upon anyone, but in the event that they fall ill and can't come to your home to assist you with those tasks, having those kind of emergency contacts, whether it's your neighbours or people a few streets over who can pop round and potentially grab your mail, or who can grab a few essential items for you at the grocery store while they're out and about and drop them at your door. You don't have to have contact with them. They can simply drop things at your door and give you a quick phone call, and then you'll know it's just there. And it definitely can ease and give a good lot of peace of mind for a lot of participants and families who are just not able to or not wanting to go out due to the risks associated with being out and about in the community at this time. That's not to scare anyone. There are obviously safety precautions in place, but it's really nice to think about how you can build those informal community connections and kind of that informal team who are willing to just lend a helping hand if and when you need it, especially if anyone themselves becomes ill and has to go to hospital. If someone can go around and just grab your essential pack of items and give it to a support worker if they've got access for you, or whatever it might be. There's lots and lots of different ways. Something I'd love to hear from everyone in the community. So if you're watching this live or you're watching the replay, if you're having great success and you want to kind of sing praises to one of your support workers, we'd love to hear from you around what they're doing to assist you, what you're loving about it, and really where you're innovating, where you're finding this flexibility. We'd absolutely love to hear those stories. We'd be keen to have a chat with you. If you're open to us sharing them, we'd also love to share them. And obviously, thank you to all of the support workers doing amazing work during this time as well. Very much appreciated by us as plan managers at Plan Tracker, and by the community, and I'm sure by all of our fellow providers and the general community of Australia. We really appreciate all of the time and effort that you're going to kind of put in all of these valuable ideas. I definitely am loving the flexibility. I'm sure you are as well, Poppy.
Oh, we love it. And we love hearing the stories. So likewise, if you've got great stories or interesting ways that you're approaching things, let us know, because it's a really extraordinary time right now. And what people are really looking for is, good ideas, creative ideas, smart solutions. And I think, you, Plan Tracker and Hireup are really great platforms to be able to sort of just be sharing that. We're not coming up with these ideas ourselves. The smart people are the people who are actually doing this.
Fantastic. Alrighty. Now I know we're running a little close to time here, so we're just going to go to our last one. Got a couple of resources for everyone, and something I just want to recap on super quickly. I know we share this every week when we do a webinar with the Plan Tracker team. It is keeping information relevant and going to trusted sources. So the NDIS website is a great place for NDIS information. They do have a series of formats, if you like, for the coronavirus updated information. So there's FAQ pages, it's in Auslan, there's also animations available as well. That is where we source a lot of our information. We're very happy always to be disseminating that information and making it even easier to understand during our sessions, but always going back to the NDIS website. Justine, I'd invite you just to pop a link up to that in the chat box for everyone. And Poppy, I know you touched on these, but I know you've got two very valuable resources that we're going to share with everyone as well. The next two on the list here, which is the importance of staying connected with your support team during this time, and also looking at some of those creative ways. Did you just want to mention a little bit about what people can find in those articles?
Yeah, sure. So, firstly, we've got a dedicated part of our website dedicated to COVID. So it's all of the important information, really practical advice, what to do, state-based advice, along with really wonderful resources around some of the tools and platforms and things that you can use to stay connected with your support workers. Got a bunch of wonderful videos about how people are approaching this situation really creatively. Dom and Zach's videos up there. And then we've also got additional information just around some of the different ways that Hirup's providing support services during this time. So we've spun up a new team that's what we're calling support partners, and they're really there to make sure that you feel safe and secure and that your supports can continue during this time. So we've got a couple of hundred people now engaging some members of the Hireup team to be a bit of a backup on call, account manager, let's say, during this time. So lots of information on our COVID page.
Fantastic. Alrighty, well, we'll make sure all of those links are sent out to everyone, and they'll be on that replay page for you if you are catching this in the replay session. Some of the other places that you can look for information, as I mentioned, the team at Plan Tracker, we do a fortnightly webinar called NDIS Cuppa Questions. You're more than welcome to join in that session. We have one next Tuesday coming up. They're every second Tuesday, nice and easy. They are free, and we always share all of the resources there. So it helps you keep up to date on all of that information on the NDIS website. Our team goes through it. We answer all of the popular questions coming through to our team and online. You're always welcome to reach out. And we also do have Facebook communities and Facebook groups. They're a good source of connection for social interaction and those sorts of things. Some of the larger ones, I will just say from personal opinion, don't always have the right information. So just be careful if you're asking a question regarding your particular plan or your particular goals. You can get a lot of different responses if you put that out to community. If you have a plan manager or a support coordinator in place, they're probably the best first point of call to go to in terms of questions around how can I spend my funding and those sorts of things. So just making sure you're not oversharing personal information online, just for privacy reasons, is always the best advice. Now, I'm just going to stop this screen share for a second, everyone. Let's jump back into our talking heads. There we go. Poppy, we've just had a couple of questions, and I know we've had a conversation about these, but I think they're valuable for everyone. So if I've connected with someone in my local community during this time and I want to add them as a support worker on Hireup, is there a fast option for me to do that?
There sure is. There's a fast lane, and there's probably a little bit of a slower lane for those that don't have that existing connection. So if you've got someone that you're bringing on to support you, get that worker to obviously get all of their first aid and their checks and complete their profile, get started with that. But let us know. And if they've got everything that's sort of all on track and correct and, hasn't expired, we can have them on the platform probably within sort of a day or so. So that's our commitment, especially during this time. If you're bringing on a worker, we can bring them on very, very speedily and hopefully make some certain exceptions if need be. If you're just a worker hoping to enter the disability sector at the moment, it might be a little bit of a slower waiting time because we've got lots of people bringing on people in their network at the moment. So we're just trying to prioritise those individuals.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Poppy. And I think we had one more question we'll touch on quickly, which we get a lot. And Louise, I'd invite you on this one, and Poppy, feel free to add. Can I employ a family member as my support worker during COVID?
Yeah, so we actually get that a lot, not just in COVID, but in general. So in general, the NDIS's response is no, you can't employ a family member to be a support worker. And we'll pop a link up as well to a little bit more information on that. There are some very extreme cases where they may consider that, but there's quite a lot of guidelines and rules and checks that you need to follow. So you need to contact the NDIS about that. But in general, the answer for can a family member be a support worker? The answer is no, generally through the NDIS. So I don't know if you've had any different experiences with that at the moment, Poppy.
I think it's really, that question has ramped up massively at the moment. We've definitely made more exceptions than we usually have because of the circumstances, and it's something that we monitor very, very closely. If we've deemed, and it goes through a really thorough process internally, it's you know, sometimes it can be quite subjective in terms of those needs. So we make sure there's a couple of people involved, and we give that assessment a really fair go. So yeah, generally no. Exceptional circumstances, we try and do our best and monitor it really closely, and do our best in terms of getting some sort of approval from the agency. But if you do think that you've got an exceptional circumstance, please reach out to us. We've got a dedicated team focused on this, and we'll do our best to sort of make an assessment with you on that.
Fantastic. And I'm just going to, clicking the wrong button there. I'm just going to pop the contact details up for the team at Plan Tracker and Hireup. And Louise and Poppy, I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time out of what I'm sure is a very busy period for both of you to have a chat to us about these creative and innovative supports. I've definitely found that helpful, and I've learned quite a few things today. So thank you both so much. Poppy, did you have anything you wanted to leave everyone with today?
No, just thank you. And of course, if you've got any questions, reach out. Everyone's circumstance is different at this time, and we're trying to be really flexible and work with you on getting the best possible results. So thanks for having us today, and hopefully we'll keep the conversation going.
Definitely, we'd absolutely love that. And Louise, thank you so much for joining me. On behalf of Hireup and Plan Tracker, to everyone who's attended this session live or is watching the replay, we really appreciate your time. We hope you found this valuable, and we'd love to see you on another session. So please keep an eye out online on social media, and we hope to see you soon. So until next time, thanks everyone.
Thank you. See you later. Bye.